What's up, y'all? It's PatReacts back with some more content. Uh, this video was a pretty interesting watch, and I wanted to talk about it. Women who realizes divorcing her husband was a huge mistake. And let's hear what she has to say about it.
If I could give anyone a piece of advice for divorce, it would be to not do it under normal circumstances. If your spouse is beating you or threatening you or your children, then of course, get out and fast. In my case, there was no abuse. We were together for 8 years. That was mostly good, and we have 4 kids. Right around 5 years, I got a promotion at work, and I got it in my head that my ex-husband was dragging me down, or at least holding me back from more success and a better life. We never had a lot of money, but with my promotion, I was now making more than he was. I started working longer hours, and at the same time, his hours were cut, so he was at home more. I really began to resent him because he was home and because he got to spend time with our kids. Most nights when I
You know, the first thing that pops out here is it's like, notice how it's like there was no abuse, blah, blah, blah. And then, 5 years in, she resents him because she makes more money than him, which I don't feel like any man would ever resent their wife for not making more money than them, you know? And if they did, it would be a blessing, or we would see it as a blessing. I think most guys would agree with me on that. Um, so it's just interesting to hear her phrase it the way she's phrasing it. We'll see where this goes. I don't like how it's going so far, though.
got home,
And it's also funny that you notice she resents him for being home with the kids. But if the tables are turned and the woman gets to stay home and be with the kids, you know, then that's just what I'm doing, or I'm supposed to be doing it, or I just want to take care of my kids better. And the guy's like, okay, you know, like why resent somebody just get because they get to spend time with your kids and raise them, and be part of their lives. Like, why would you ever resent somebody for that? A job is a job, and if it's helping pay the bills and everything, awesome. More power to you. It won't always be that way, or you would hope. You know, I would be more than happy to have my spouse or significant other spend time with my child, and I would hope that they would do the same for me. In weird, weird perspective.
they were already getting ready for bed, if not already sleeping. After a few months of my new job, it was clear to me that things were not going well at home without me there. Some nights the dishes weren't done when I got home, or the kids hadn't eaten, or whatever else I could think of to be mad at him about.
Which is so ironic, because how many times have you heard this the opposite way, where it's like, how dare somebody, um how dare men get mad because things aren't done at the home when they spend the majority of the time at the home. And it's like, things happen, people run out of motivation, etc. All you have to do is have a conversation with someone and say, hey, I'd appreciate if you do this, this, and that, and then be grateful when they change their ways, and, like, try and step it up. Unless he just never does that and just continually allows it to just be in disarray and the home's a mess all the time when she comes home. You know, 4 kids is a lot to handle. Um, and it's not always easy to just have everything done. I think having a little bit of grace in the relationship with whoever ends up having to take care of the children more. And really, I like how I phrase it, having, like, getting. I mean, I would hope if you have this amount of kids that you want to be a part of their life and take care of them. Yes, it's a huge responsibility, but it's something that you choose. I don't think you have 4 children without choosing to have 4 children. Kind of crazy.
It really didn't matter. He kept saying that he would try harder, but that it was hard being home all the time.
No shot.
That always made me really mad.
Why?
For the next couple years, things kept getting worse. My hours weren't any shorter and his were on and off full time. There was no convenient time for him to be working full time because of my hours, but we also needed the money. Whenever he would tell me that he could get extra hours, I would always complain. And the less hours he worked, the more I complained.
So let me get that straight. You're complaining because he works too much, and then when he doesn't work enough, you're complaining about that too. It's like, so what can you do as a spouse when the other person's acting like that? I feel like that is completely unfair and a little bit crazy, man. Like, why would I mean, if you want him to get a better job or something, I guess you could go about that, but it's just kind of crazy to get mad at him for being with the kids too much, to get mad at him if he works more, to get mad at him if he works less. Like, where is the win? How does he, appease you, make you feel happy, accepted? It sounds like she's just not happy with the amount of work she's having to do at her job and how much she's missing out on life of like her family. But instead of maybe considering like a different career option or doing something to alleviate that, or looking at the bigger picture and saying down the road, this is going to put us in a good financial spot, and I'll be able to spend more time with the kids at that point. I feel like every American, or really any household in the world, deals with some type of this, where one of the partners, to make sure that people are fed and stuff, is going to have to spend more time at work, especially if you want a good job. Like, you're going to have to commit a decent amount of hours. If you're trying to get promoted, they're going to expect you to spend more time. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know, but that's just how business is, and that's how it works. You got to spend more time. You have to show more commitment than the people around you to hold these, highly sought after roles and keep promotions. Somebody's got to do it. And if you want to be the person that, or you have the opportunity to be that person, and that's what you want to do, then how are you going to hold it against the other person just because they're making less than you and spending more time? Or this seems psycho to me.
That he wasn't bringing in enough money. Whenever he brought up the contradiction,
Huge
I would tell
contradiction.
him that he needed to
Oh,
figure it
it's
out.
his fault.
I
Okay.
knew that it would bother him, so I started saying that a lot and for everything that I could.
And you notice how at the very beginning of this, she said there was no abuse, but right there, that is like mental and psychological abuse, where no matter what the person does, you're gaslighting them into making them feel guilty and like they're doing something wrong and not holding their end of the bargain. But no matter what they do, it's not enough. It's not good. Kind of crazy, kind of just disturbing to hear this.
I really started to resent him and I pulled away from him. I knew that it
Why?
was hurting him, but I didn't care. If he didn't want to be hurt, then he would at least try to make me happy.
But how is it going to make you happy? Like, what is he going to do to make you happy? Because you've literally already stated that nothing he could do was making you happy. You're just unhappy for the sake of being unhappy, which is a pretty miserable thing to be a part of. I feel bad for this guy, man.
I used that same thing to justify when I started to talk to another guy at work.
Oh, nice. So now she's cheating.
I thought he was just a friend.
Mm-hmm.
But talking at work turned into texting at
Oh,
home,
yeah, I'm sure
and
it
then
did.
pictures and videos, and then trying to sneak some alone time with him. I knew that it was wrong, but it made me feel so alive, and my husband had not made me feel like that in years. I was tired of being unhappy, and I was doing this for me. The worst was the night I came home at a reasonable time and found that he had cleaned the whole house. cooked the whole family dinner, and picked out a movie for all of us
God
to watch
damn.
together.
That's a real dude. Way to go, dude. Or I guess not. So what does she want? I mean, most people would be like, wow, awesome. Way to go. Like, you freaking killed it. Like, I really appreciate that.
This would have made me swoon a couple years earlier. But that night, I couldn't even look at him, and I pretended to be sick. I spent the rest of the night in bed while he waited on me and checked on me and even made me different food and brought it to me in bed.
Dude,
It made me feel terrible. And then it made me angry that he made me feel
he didn't make you feel that way. You made yourself feel that way. Where is the accountability?
that way. And by the end of the night, I was texting with the other guy.
Nice. So he does a great thing. He takes care of things at the home, is super responsible, makes dinner, you know, has the house completely cleaned, all these things that like somebody that is in charge of or getting or being in charge of the household more because they're spending more time there. That's a good thing. Like, way to go. You killed it. It's his fault.
Over the next
What a
month or
huge
two,
gaslight.
from
Oh
that
my
night,
god.
it did not matter what he did. He was wrong just for breathing most days. He would get so upset with how I was treating
Yeah. I think everybody would get upset with how you're treating him. I mean, this is just brutal.
him, and I would just wait and egg him on into losing it because I knew it would happen eventually.
Again, see, it's like she's pushing him. She's constantly pushing him towards, you know, like a mental breakdown or like freaking out or getting extremely angry because he's doing what the right thing. He's taking care of the family in the way that he can, and you're taking care of the family in the way that you can.
After most of the fights we had, he would apologize for whatever I told him he did wrong, if there even was something. But I never did. I would usually find a way to make him feel even worse. I knew that I was right because he was wrong, and that was all that mattered to me.
Dude, and I see this so often. It's like people get on this like high horse where they just can do no wrong. They don't believe they've done any wrong. And then they just like abuse the crap. They just treat the other person like crap. And they don't give them a fair shake at all.
I even pretended that I didn't care when he
You know, I've seen this with guys towards girls too. So this is just so interesting to see it from the other side and to see, you know, a woman that's like gone all the time at work, then coming home and being like, things aren't done. Nothing you do is making me happy. You know, why isn't the house clean? Why isn't, you know, the kids taken care of properly? Like, you know, blah blah blah. All these things that if a guy were to say that about a woman, I think people would just call him misogynistic and like a woman hater. But if she does it to him, it's like, oh no. I don't think anybody's feels like this is acceptable. But at this point, I bet you nobody really knows what's really going on because she's just spinning it however she's going to spin it. And then, you know, his friends might understand, but man, this would be rough. Imagine being married to somebody for 8 years and them doing this to you.
found out about my relationship with the guy from work. It really destroyed me inside to see him holding back tears.
Okay.
But I wasn't going to let him
Oh,
see that.
okay.
He was at his weakest, and that was when I chose to tell him that I wanted a divorce.
So she starts cheating on him. He finds out about it. And then she's like, I knew I hurt him, so I'm going to hurt him more. Sounds
I could
reasonable.
almost hear his heart shattering inside his chest.
No.
He talked and fought and said that we could work through it together. I really wasn't interested in fixing our marriage, but I mostly ended things with the other guy
Notice how she phrases that. Mostly ended things. But I'm sure she left that little string attached to where she could pull it back, you know. Oh,
but only because I knew I could get it back if I wanted.
exactly. There you go.
I could see that he was trying, and occasionally I would let him know. But for the most part, I kept being a huge to him for any and all reasons that I could think of. I'm not sure how much more the man could have done to make me happy besides finding a job that paid enough for me to not have to work.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now she goes from wanting to be the person that makes all the money because it's so awesome to be that person, to him making all the money so she can do what he's doing. Like, how dare he do that? It's so hypocritical. Holy crap.
Work at all. He said that he was looking, but looking and finding are two different things. I started saying awful things to him and even outright ignoring him. I was so confident with mine and everyone else's opinion.
Oh, nice. She has, like, who would affirm this? I mean, I guess in you know, if she probably didn't tell it like she's telling it to us right now, because it sounds like she's being pretty brutally honest about this, which, I mean, I guess there's a start. Um, but who would affirm that and say that, like, what her actions, what she's doing to him are okay? Like, why would anybody say that's okay? Am I being unreasonable with that?
I contacted a lawyer and within a couple weeks had filed for divorce. It went pretty smoothly. The ex-husband didn't ask for much besides to not get divorced and to try to work it all out. I didn't care about that though. He was broken, but I was free. I could do whatever I wanted without having to feel any guilt or answer to anybody. It was an amazing feeling of freedom. It didn't last long though. In the first month after he moved out, I missed garbage day 3 times. There was also rarely a single clean dish, and the
So all the things that she supposedly he wasn't doing now aren't getting done at all. Shocker.
laundry sat in piles so long that I had to start doing the sniff test to see if it could be worn again. I also never saw my kids more miserable. My oldest had seen some of the messages from the other guy months earlier, and she knew that the ex-husband still wanted to try to work it out. It didn't take her long to stop talking to me at all.
Shocker. I mean, I feel like she's just 100% in the wrong in this, and there's like so far I have seen no redeeming qualities. And if I was her child, I'd probably not like her too, and probably wouldn't talk to her. I'm known. If I decide it's over with somebody, or you know, there are times where sometimes space is the best thing, and you know, you just walk away.
Except to say that she wanted to go to my ex-husband's house. The others all told me they
Shocker.
wanted to live with the ex-husband too.
But would she allow that? Absolutely not.
I did my best
Because life's all about her, right? And she's doing her best to try and make them happy, but she's the one that made them unhappy. Isn't that weird?
to try to make them happy, but I ended up just buying them toys all the time.
Yeah, you can't buy people's love or happiness. It's always temporary, it's always fading. That's why materialistic views on the world will only bring you fleeting joy. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a shocker. I don't understand how people don't know this yet, but okay.
And the happiness only lasted minutes. I also was having a lot of trouble with work. Being alone, I couldn't work all those extra hours that I was expected to. I finally gave in and started calling the ex-husband to watch the
Why?
kids. He would always come over.
I mean, I guess he loves his kids, so she's using him, but, you know, he wants to be with his kids, take care of his kids, so he's going to show up and do it.
As soon as he could.
So terrible that she's still doing this to him. This is... Imagine getting divorced and then having to deal with her after that.
When I would get home, I would find clean dishes and laundry and even dinner sometimes. He would never say too much after I got home. He would just say to call him if I needed anything, and then he would leave.
I mean, it sounds like he's just a doormat, man. He's just getting walked over. Like, what the heck? I don't think I would ever put up with this, like, to be honest with you. Absolutely not. I don't see how you don't see the red flags of this long before you get married, though.
One night, he took out the garbage and brought it to the curb because it was garbage night, and I forgot again. He always looked so sad when it was time to go. Finally, after a couple months, my friends convinced me to go out on a date. It was for dinner and a movie, and I was excited and hopeful. But at dinner, I started getting a feeling of overwhelming guilt.
Well, I wonder why. What? Shock.
It got so bad that I ended up not even going to the movie.
Okay.
A week and about a million tears later, I was
Oh,
on
okay.
a therapist's
All right.
couch.
Well,
I told
at
her-
least she's finally seeking help after destroying her marriage. Awesome. You would think you would want to, like, maybe try and do that before. You know, since the person committed to you and said they loved you and had 4 kids with you, you know. But hey,
everything that had happened.
what am I?
starting
You know,
with
maybe I should
the
become a life
promotion
coach.
that I got at work. She did not agree with me or with any of the encouragement to divorce that I got. I ended up in her office 2 and sometimes 3 times a week. And the more that I talked to prove that I was right, the more that I started to see how wrong I was.
And, you know, there is the problem. Don't ever surround yourself in an echo chamber. You know, if people only give you affirmation and they never give you critical feedback and say, like, hey, you know, like, I get you're mad, but there's this, and that the other person's doing, or whatever the reason is, it's never a one-sided story. If you have good friends, they should be willing to tell you when, like, you've been a jerk, when you're possibly in the wrong. If you surround yourself with people that are just an echo chamber, just affirming you and your beliefs and telling you everything you want to hear, you know, this is what happens.
It was truly heartbreaking. I don't know if I cried as much in my whole life as I did in the first months in her office. After about $2,000 of therapy sessions, I learned that my ex-husband had his faults, but I figured out that mine were so much worse.
Wow, okay. Finally. Jeez. Seems like a very extreme way to learn all that.
I did so many awful things and said awful things that I wouldn't want to be with me. But he did. I still remember him asking me in the meeting with the lawyer to please not go through with it. I did go through with it though. And then later I bragged on here how great it felt.
Ah, you see? The social media. She's getting her validation not only from personal friends, but I would guarantee a large sum of money. I would be willing to bet that she was getting a lot of her validation from people that had no knowledge of her partner, knew nothing about him, had never met him, never met her family, and just saw her videos of her one side of the story of her complaining about whatever and being like, yes, girl, yes, you know, screw him, he sucks, blah, blah, blah. And they don't really know the full picture or anything about it and how she's really acting. And they're just like, you know, you're strong, you're independent.
I was so
You don't need
wrong,
him.
and now I can see it. A couple weeks ago, I went outside with him when he was leaving the house. I asked him about getting back
Oh, God. Like, I hope to God he says no.
together. When he looked at me, his eyes were full of tears, and a couple went down his...
Well, I mean, okay. I really hope... I don't feel like he should take her back. But, you know, for the sake of the kids and stuff, maybe they could work it out. But I don't think you just change overnight. I mean, it is crazy that she actually realized that she was in the wrong, because a lot of people that are like this, caught up in themselves, wouldn't see it. So the fact that she even got to this point is shocking. So congrats to her. But I mean, you treated your significant other awful, and have no right to ask him to come back.
Cheeks. He told me that he didn't know if he could. He said that the pain has been too much for too long, and that if we got back together, that I might just turn around and do it to him again.
Yeah,
He said
I wonder why he would think that.
that he always thought that I would realize how much he loved me and stop up until I signed the divorce papers.
Yeah, shocker.
And let out a big, over-exaggerated sigh of relief. He said that hurt him more than anything else, and that he doesn't know if he can ever trust me again. I don't blame him. I destroyed a man who, looking back, was a great husband. I deprived my kids of having a great father in the house with them, and I took his kids away from him. And me, the one who pushed for the divorce, expecting happiness and a life of freedom, spend all my free time sitting at home or sitting on a therapist's couch. If your marriage is bad, look at yourself first and see if you can make changes. This is advice for men
And honestly, if you don't see something wrong with yourself, you need to go to therapy. Because 100% of the time, there is things that you as an individual, no matter how bad or lopsided a relationship is, that you could do better. And if you can't see that, I mean, that's a huge red flag right off the bat. You should have, you should be able to critically assess how you are and who you are and make changes in your lifestyle. Um,
and women. Getting divorced is not fun.
yeah, shocker.
Being divorced is not fun. And seeing your husband broken and your children never happy because of your actions is the most painful experience
I mean, I can believe that.
that I can imagine. I wish all of you well and hope that you will give your marriages a second chance.
I mean, I don't feel like I need to say much more about this. Um, it's just crazy that people think that they can treat somebody else like this and then expect them to forgive them or to come back from this. I think there is redemption, and I don't think you should hold anything against somebody for the rest of their life. I mean, maybe there are some things that are like past redemption, but things like this, issues in a marriage are not past redemption. But seeing the character, the content of somebody, the content of their character on full display and seeing how she treated the husband, and I'm sure there are things that he could have done better, but it sounds like she, you know, mentally and physically abused the crap out of him, emotionally abused him. Took him for granted, and then thought that she could do better, and he wasn't the one, and believed all this narrative about, women need to date somebody and marry somebody that makes more money than them, and it's just like, yes, maybe there was a time back in the day when that was it, but as more and more women join the workforce, I think they're going to have to make a shift towards being more like men and saying, you know, financial income is not the number one thing I look at when I'm finding it. And if you do, you're always going to be miserable because the way the economy is, the way the world is right now, financially, etc., like it is going to be harder and harder to find somebody that is 100% just going to be able to support the entire family while you don't work. Statistically, that's just not true. It's not feasible. It's not possible. Um, Unless you're working all the time. Yeah, it's just not possible. So, you have to be willing to make sacrifices. And I don't think you should ever 100% hold financial I mean, it's one thing if they're not keeping a steady job and they can't even, work and stuff like that. But if they're working a steady job and say they make $60,000 and you make $80,000, like what? You know, I think this whole high value man thing, it's like it's cool to hear it. And I think it's awesome to focus on bettering yourself and doing better. But at the same time, you know, there is more to life than just your career and just being successful. And um, it's crazy that women will go down the career path and then resent the man that they chose because he doesn't make as much money, but he willingly allows them because he wants to give them the freedom to pursue the career that they have been told so desperately by society they need in order to be like happy. Um, and then they realize that careers are what men have realized careers are for a long time. There are benefits to them, but also there are extreme negative things about them. And when you pursue being a top echelon person in your career field, you make sacrifices in every other aspect of your life, including your family and friends. Um, and you will not spend as much time with them. You will not see them. You will not be present in their lives to the same level as the other person will be that's not working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Um, and so it's like awesome to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make this, 6-figure income. But there are jobs that I'm sure you can make that and not have to work your 80 hours a week. You may be able to do it with 60 or like 50 if you get really efficient at your job, etc. But you're missing out on a whole part of your life that you can never get back, and missing out on your kids and what they do. It's a huge sacrifice, and I think people easily forget about that in their pursuit of saying like, I want to be equal and I want to do what the other person has done. And I think maybe women are starting to realize that this whole idea of like being independent and working crazy hours and being super successful and super competitive and driven, it has its moments, but it is also a lonely experience. And it is a missing out of things that are important to you. I can't tell you how many guys I've known that have done this, or I've heard about that have done this too, and missed their kids' birthdays, missed important things that happened, missed their kids' first step, you know, missed out on so much of their life because they're so focused on making this ridiculous amount of money. And shocker, when later on in life it's like they feel like the dad hasn't been present in their life, etc. Um, and yes, it's awesome that he stayed, and yes, it's awesome that he did all that work. But I think there needs to be a level of change in society where we start to realize that you know there is a point where once your basic necessities are met and you have leftover money and you can provide and save money and you're not stressed out about paying your bills, there's a certain point after that where it's not going to necessarily get better. Anything else is just extra money to spend on extra things that you don't need. Um, and you can't replace people and the relationships that you lose by just disappearing. And I'm talking to myself on this too because I tend to be a hard worker and work long hours and not spend enough time with friends, family, etc. Um, but there should be an end in sight. If you're going to do something like that, there should be an end in sight, a goal. And there should also be a point where you realize that this is not healthy anymore and I need to walk away from it. And, you know, that's why being financially smart and not putting yourself in financial promises that you can't hold or do not want to hold for the entirety of that promise. Like, say, getting a really expensive house, getting a really expensive car, getting multiple cars, having lots of debt that you have to pay back. It will force you to work a job, to be stuck in a job that will never allow you to be with your family and friends and enjoy life how it's supposed to be enjoyed. There's definitely enjoyment in work, but there is a point where it is not about enjoying anymore. It's about just being addicted to working. And due to that, you will miss out on so many things in life that are important and necessary and make you feel more connected to the ones that you love. So take this as a warning. This can happen to men and women. And you have to be willing to work through your problems. I think divorce, if you are truly interested in getting married, divorce should be thing, the last thing that you resort to. You should do everything else in your power before divorcing, unless, like she said at the beginning, they're like physically abusing you, or that you feel your life is threatened, etc. Because once once it's over, and once you break that trust, you'll never get it back, and you don't realize how green it is until you get to the other side and really realize it wasn't as awesome as you thought it was going to be. Anyways, peace out. Yeah, have a good one.